Welcome back to another week of the Rebel's Edge. This one a little bit different because we get December 10th, the Fed, and a quarter-point cut. That's right, quarter-point cut. It's like a 90-some-odd% chance, folks. So people today just kind of pulled back a little. I'll bet you they buy it into Wednesday, and Pete and I will describe why on today's Rebel's Edge.
I got to tell you, we got quite a few of these in the vault somewhere, don't we? I mean, how long we've been doing this thing, John, with the clapper and the whole thing?
Last time I counted, Pete, and I just got tired of writing the number on there. What I should get is one of those electronic ones, because the new ones are all electronic and little digital lights light up. That'd be much easier. This one, I got to erase it and then do all that stuff. It's a pain in the backside. It really is. So I think we'd be better off, definitely. But anyway, welcome, folks. He is Pete Najarian. I'm Jon Najarian. Mark Lopresti was just calling us on our cell phone because how doesn't he know that this is what we do at this time, Pete?
He's good at a lot of things, and there's also a lot of things not so much.
By the way, is that Krusty Krabs?
No, this is Krusty's out of Nebraska. And it's when my daughter was going to school there and all that kind of stuff, and these guys were a part of it, and I just thought it was the most classic hat ever. And so Scott Frost gave me one the last time when he was still coaching there. He goes, "Hey, you got to get a Krusty's, man. You got to get a Krusty's." So every once in a while, I have to bring it out of the vault.
Cool. Well, I just said that because the SpongeBob movie's out, or almost out, Pete. And SpongeBob, of course, one of his bosses / nemesis is Mr. Crab, who runs Krusty's.
Who's got the crabs?
That's right. Let's dive into macro, Pete. And I'm going to say Federal Reserve, that's 2 days hence. It is a fait accompli. That's French for it's a lock. That the Fed is going to cut rates by a quarter point on Wednesday. Basically announced at 2 p.m. Eastern time. What do you got for macro, Pete?
You know what? I'm right there with you as far as that. I mean, the fact that it's a lock, and I totally agree with you, John. Matter of fact, last week I was on with Maria, and they were bringing out, I think it was PPI or something like that, and I'm looking, I just said, hey, look, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, in my opinion, or whatever. So I'd be shocked, simply shocked, if it didn't. The other thing I just want to point out real quick, because I know we're going to also hit it in just a few minutes, John, but this Confluent, just another great example of, hey, look, why do we like the financials so much, and especially those that are investment bankers? Well, I'll tell you why. Because this type of thing is going on. And, oh, by the way, $11 billion, I'd say that whoever the bankers are on this one are probably pretty happy about this, John. So interesting to see that. And earnings just keep on cruising and keep on basically lifting up the markets, because each and every day and in the last few weeks, we've seen something that's just been absolutely extraordinary from the side of how strong some of these reports have been as far as the earnings.
Well, talk about something that's not strong, Pete. Let's talk about nat gas. Nat gas today is down over 6.5%, folks. So it was over $5 per million British thermal unit, or BTU. Now it is, let me see right now, Pete, $4.94, down 6%. So that's a big drop for Natty. And that's why it makes my list of fantastic futures.
You know, it's so funny because I'm going to hit the same thing, but in a different way. Here's what I was going to say about nat gas. How about the fact that it did get up to 5? That's the highest level, John, since December of 22. So we're going back a few years actually there. So the fact that it's getting beat up a little bit today, I think it makes some sense. Hell, this thing was trading at 3 on October 20th. So the sprint from 3 up to 5 and now a pullback of, like you said, 6%. I think it definitely, you know, it grabs attention because it's 6%. But I think we also got to look at it and say, hey, man, this thing's been on a hell of a roll to the upside as well. I mean, that's a heck of a – think if you added another digit. What if it was $30 and now it's $50, right? I mean, and or now all the way down to $49.50 or whatever. So, pretty substantial move. And you take a look at that chart, it's pretty amazing. But maybe, just maybe, this thing's turning over a little bit too. We'll see.
All right. Well, we'll dive into that stock Pete mentioned already, Confluent, folks, because Confluent up strong double digits today. IBM saying they're going to acquire Confluent, and they are a pioneer in data streaming, and they're going to pay over $11 billion. And obviously that's really lifting shares pretty dramatically, Pete. So we did have unusual option activity. And take a look at these two slides, Pete, because the unusual activity, there it is, on the 2nd of December. Here it is, the 8th. So that was 6 days ago. Somebody just randomly threw a 5,000 lot at this particular stock, paid 85 cents for a whole bunch of those, above the market by $2. Well, now they're nearly, since those were those calls were calls that expire in January, it went from 85 cents to 5.80 earlier today, Pete. So for those of you who don't do the math as often as Pete and I do, if you invested basically under $1, you got out for nearly $6. That's 500% profit, not just move, profit. So if you put $1,000 in, it took 5,000 off the table. If you put 10,000 in, you took 50,000 off the table. Scan that QR code, folks, if you want to get in and follow the same stuff Pete and I are trading.
Yep. We talk about unusual option activity all the time on here for all the right reasons, right? I mean, that's the world that we came from, the options world. And we just love the fact that it gives you that opportunity for something like that to occur, because it's so rare to see that in the actual stock market, but it's not that rare in the options market if you're fortunate enough to find some of the unusual option activity that we report on all the time. So IBM is going to pay $31, John, like you said, $11 billion. The data streaming is in real time. This is something very critical for the deployment of the AI world. So just looking at this thing and how IBM is moving, I got to tell you, I tipped the hat to IBM because for a while there, that was one of those stocks that people were just basically putting them, they were burying them, right? They were just like, all right, they were something in the 80s and 90s, but then they're done. Well, that's not really true. And IBM has been really doing some amazing things over time and changed who they are as a company and done things really the right way. And I would give them a lot of credit for this one as well, because I know it's $11 billion, which is a heck of a lot of money, but I think this is something that's going to be very critical for IBM going forward and gives them another leg up.
Yeah, I mean, they're big time getting involved in deeper and deeper in data centers and all the rest, Pete. So streaming data, yeah, it seems like something they should be involved in as well.
Yeah.
All right, well, we've got another one, a second one, Pete, GPCR. This is called Structure Therapeutics. And most of you have probably not heard of this one, and don't blame yourself. I must say it was one of the first times I heard of it too, Pete. But I did actually hear about this one that's doing basically a once daily oral GLP-1, which means, the same weight loss drug that they apply for Ozempic and so forth, Pete. But instead of sticking yourself with a needle, it's an oral. And this one is apparently working. So, because there have been other attempts. Look at the move that it made today, 80%. That's right, 80% on the highs today, Pete. And we did have unusual option activity in this one.
Nice.
I mean, there it is, Structure Therapeutics. When we saw it back in September, it was basically a $21 stock. Well, it's been sort of, gradually climbing, but as you can see there, it basically made it to just over 30, which is still kind of a windfall, but look at where it is today, 63. So bang, that is exactly why we trade unusual option activity.
Absolutely. And John, this is a company that actually has a great balance sheet. A lot of the time we say, well, the balance sheet's kind of tipping over a little bit. They've got a lot of debt. They've got this, they've got that. That's not the case here. But there are some shorts out there, which probably didn't hurt in terms of the move to the upside. Instead of being maybe a 50 or 60% move, the reason it's an 80+% move is the fact that there's probably, I think, something close to about 11 to 12% short interest here. So the pipeline is pretty solid. This particular situation that they've got going on now, this once daily oral, as opposed to everybody else who's doing essentially the injections, that's a big deal. It might not sound like a big deal, but it is a big deal to people. They don't really want to have the injectable side. They want to be able to just plop a pill in their mouth and do it that way, John. Easier access. They defined that in a big way. Let's also remember one thing, however, it's at phase 2. Now, I think that they probably are okay. But until you get all the way there, there's always the possibility that something negative can come up. So I would say be very, very careful if you're a part of this. And if you were lucky enough to get some of those unusuals, you might want to consider taking some of that off, maybe. I mean, in any circumstance, I would say that's probably the right move on a move like this. But that being said, you just never know, because you're not in phase 3 even. You're in phase 2. It has to go to phase 3, and then they've got to get the approval process. So that's still a ways out, but I think this is an amazing thing that happened. And the other amazing thing is that we did have that UOA, and we've been seeing more and more really solid hits of late in terms of the unusual option activity. So pretty amazing that Structured Therapeutics is running the way they are, John. It's absolutely amazing.
Well, what about this next one then, Pete? Let's take a look at MRVL and Broadcom, which is symbol AVGO. So when you look at MRVL, Pete, it's about a $76 billion company. And they were supplying some of the big boys, like, for instance, Benchmark really talked about this because Microsoft is apparently in talks with Broadcom. Now, Broadcom's over $1 trillion in market cap, Pete, versus 76 billion over there at MRVL. So when you look at nearly a $2 trillion monster versus a $76 billion company, if you want to hook your wagon, which Microsoft has done up until now, to MRVL, they might be having second thoughts, Pete, and thinking maybe some of the new breakthroughs will come from the guy that's got a lot more market cap and thus perhaps a lot more money that they can spend to keep at the forefront. I don't know exactly, Pete, but I do know that if you leave MRVL and go over to Broadcom, it's going to be bad for one and good for the other.
Yeah, no doubt about it, John. I mean, all you've got to do is just take a look at that. Now, Broadcom's not really moving a whole lot on this one. I think that's probably because of the time frame that it will take, but certainly is affecting what we're seeing out of MRVL, John. I mean, they're really taking it on the chin. The last I looked, I think it was a little bit more than 10% to the downside, but it looks like Microsoft wants to go to these custom chips that are made from Broadcom. And under those circumstances, you know, this is definitely going to leave MRVL kind of high and dry in this particular case. There's also so much competition out there, whether you talk about Meta or you talk about Amazon and AI chips and the launches of these things. Now, Meta's all the way out to 2027, but nonetheless, there's a very competitive market right now. So I think it's something to at least be very aware of. And, you know, like you said, John, the bigger and badder are the ones that are going to, I think, be able to give what people are looking for. And that's where Broadcom, I think, really has stepped in, and they've done an amazing job. They lagged for a while, but I think people all of a sudden started realizing, hey, this is a company that really should be looked at a lot closer. And they have, and they've started to move to really from that bottom left to upper right in a big way. So yeah, great to see what Broadcom's doing. And by the way, that AVGO, remember AVGO? Remember that was part of a partnership that came together long ago as well. So they've got Broadcom for the name, but they've still got that acronym in terms of what they trade like, John.
Yeah. Well, let's wind it up, Pete, with Fulcrum, FULC, Fulcrum Therapeutics. Now, there is a disease. It's not an orphan disease, but it really affects blacks and not whites, and that is sickle cell. And it's a terrible disease, sickle cell is, but Fulcrum, they have reported positive results for their ongoing 20 milligram dose their pioneer trial. So if indeed they can, keep in mind what Pete said earlier, folks, if indeed they can do what perhaps Structure Therapeutics and others have done, and that is make it through phase 1, make it through phase 2, make it through phase 3, and then get their marketing and everything approved by the FDA, yeah, this thing could certainly be up strong, and that's why it's up 60% today, Pete.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you said that, John, because I think people do have to have some sort of caution about this, and it's great. We all have to agree with that. I mean, this is fantastic. These results look fantastic. They look incredible. They're early results, though. This is phase 1. They still have to go through phase 2, phase 3. Sometimes they'll accelerate things, and hopefully they're going to be one of those that can. But that's still something. There's still the process that has to be gone through, John. And when you look at this whole thing, I think that's why you've got to be just a little bit cautious, only because it is in phase 1, because we've seen this time and time again where phase 1 has been great, but then all of a sudden maybe there's a stumble in phase 2 or phase 3. And, so you've just got to be very, very careful about that. They got a really solid balance sheet, so I like that side of it as well. There are some shorts out there, which is going to give you that squeeze. That's probably part of the reason it's up about 60%. So I like what they're doing. I'm really excited for the folks that are out there, and sickle cell is a terrible disease. So hopefully this is an answer for them, but it still has to go through the process, and maybe they can accelerate it. And if that's the case, I'd love to see that happen, because that would be something that we certainly would love to see on the market for people, so that they can, live a better life. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, because literally, folks, it got named for the cells look like a sickle instead of, as they're supposed to look, like a more or less a tube. And when they get sticky, they can clog and cause stroke and things like that. They can also just cause a lot of pain. And it is primarily for folks from the African continent. It does affect a little bit of other areas of the world, but most of it seems to be, Pete, from folks that migrated from Africa to Mediterranean region and things like that. But yeah, 7.7 million people have this. It's a bad deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awful.
So, well, let's talk a little bit about Notre Dame, Pete, because apparently, the fact that they're independent, I think, is why they're getting hit with this, Pete, because they didn't have a conference championship. Miami did, and Miami won the conference championship and leapfrogged Notre Dame. Notre Dame didn't play last week. So all of a sudden, they're on the outside looking in. What do you think? And let's give this guy a listen.
Yeah.
Cowardly, immature, and pathetic by Notre Dame, withdrawing from a bowl game because you didn't get into the college football playoffs, even though your team is 10-2. Cowardly. Immature. You robbed seniors of their final football game of their career. You robbed underclassmen of 3 more weeks of development on field. And furthermore, you robbed your fan base of another exciting and thrilling game because you didn't get into the bowl game you wanted. You're not the first team, and you won't be the last team.
That's
My
true.
freshman year, Oklahoma
That's
went
true.
to the national championship game with 1 loss, even though we had 1 loss when we beat Oklahoma. It happens. It happens. You build resiliency. The next year I went to the national championship game. It happens, Notre Dame. Everybody can't go to the dance. And also, how you gonna complain and moan about not being able to go to the dance when you ain't even have no great wins all season? Undefeated. Like, let's be real here. Last thing I'm saying is this states and sets a terrible precedent in college football. We got 10-win teams, turning down bowl games now. It's just something children do, some kids do. When kids don't get what they want,
Right.
they just sit in the corner and pout. It's pathetic, bro.
He's not very happy about it, is he, John?
No, I don't think he's a big fan of the Fighting Irish, Pete. But you know what? Two other teams did reject going to bowl games.
Yep.
And they got fined $500,000 for rejecting it. But Notre Dame's an independent, so they don't get fined. It would have been interesting had they got fined, and maybe they should, Pete, because I happen to agree with them even though I know you have a take about the players and things like that, I think that especially the young players, I mean, maybe some of the guys that are going to get drafted would step back and say, okay, I'm not going to play because this is a meaningless bowl game and maybe I get hurt. If a player thinks that. And you never want to think about getting hurt because, you know, it might end up, that might end up happening. You'd rather just play your guts out and have a great game. But what do you think, Pete? You're a guy who played in a couple bowl games.
Yep, lucky enough to do that. And I will say, recruited by a lot of these various schools, including Notre Dame or whatever, and knowing the inside of what they're doing. But, you know, John, it's very easy for me to say, you know what? He's right. That's Acho, right? Is that Acho? I think, yeah. I could very easily say, you know what? He's dead on right. And I think you agree with him too. And I don't disagree with him. I agree. But I'll throw this out at you. Okay, just to take the other side is all I'm doing, because I don't like it at all. I think it's a weird move for them to do this, but because they did that, I decided, all right, well, let me break it down, and it comes down to two teams in my opinion. So you've got those that get the bye, right? Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas Tech. By the way, Texas Tech. I'm sticking with that one, John. I'm going to say best offense, best defense. I really like those guys. And that daggone linebacker with that funny mustache, he is the best. He deserves some votes
Rodriguez.
for the Heisman.
Rodriguez, I think, right?
His wife is a Black Hawk helicopter pilot. I don't know if you knew that or not. They've been married 2.5 years. She's a badass, John. She's more of a badass than he is, I'll tell you that. And he's great. I love everything about that kid. I think he's fun. Then you've got the teams that get the home bid, right? You've got Oregon, Mississippi, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. But when I get to the next one, this is why I'm going to this direction. So the next 4 of 12, you've got Miami, makes some sense. Tulane, James Madison, you know, because of different reasons, those are going to be there. There's one other team though, John, and that's Alabama. Do you know what Alabama's record is? It's 10-3. It's not 10-2. It's 10-3. And here's why it kind of, if I'm Notre Dame, I would be a little frustrated, and here's why. So beginning of the year, Notre Dame lost to Miami, and that's what everybody goes back to, right? That's the fall guy. Miami's pretty damn good. As a matter of fact, Miami's in the top 12, okay? Bama lost to a Florida State team that is, I think their record was about 50-50, and they lost 31-17. Meanwhile, Notre Dame lost to Miami by 3 points, 27-24. So Bama got blown out. I think that's official. You could say that's the case. They lost by 2 points to Oklahoma. They lost 28-7 to Georgia. So that's what their losses looked like. And meanwhile, you look over at Notre Dame. Now, I grant you that they don't play the same as an SEC. That there's no doubt in my mind. And I'm not defending Notre Dame at all. I just think it's kind of interesting that this is a team that has 2 losses by a grand total of 4 points, Notre Dame. So 4 points away, John. If they had 5 more points, and were able to establish it out there, this is a team that literally could have damn near been undefeated. So it's interesting for me to look at it and just say, well, you know what? They're a bunch of crybabies. But at the same time, and I still don't like the fact that they're not playing, because if nothing else, it gives you a chance to be with the players, to play one more game, to get them in that much better opportunity to, especially the young guys, for next year. You get that much more time, right? So you get to prepare. But I throw that out at you, not saying that I think that Bama shouldn't be there, but should Bama be there over Notre Dame? I don't know. I mean,
they shouldn't.
Yeah.
They shouldn't. I agree. Notre Dame deserves to be there more than Bama.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if either should be there.
Right.
But I'll say that Notre Dame deserves it more than Bama. But here's what I bet somebody watches and listens to us, Pete, and starts stealing this. So I might as well say it publicly here.
Yeah.
One of the reasons you play those bowl games, if you're a nobody school, you do it for the money and a little exposure. I happen to remember, Pete, the athletic director at Wisconsin, when he was the coach at Wisconsin, you know, the guy that came from Notre Dame.
Yeah.
He's the guy that perfected the idea that I'm going to pick up the phone from the sideline of the bowl game and say, hey, you see this right here? You see that? I'm pointing at the coach. You see me right now on TV? You could be here next year. You could be here on TV playing in front of millions of people, you know, and all that kind of stuff. That's something Notre Dame's going to miss out on. So they're missing out on exposing their players more to coach. Well, not coaches. That would be stealing their players. You don't want them to see your player for that. But you're missing out on the pros scouting your players because they can't scout them now, Pete.
Right.
You know, when the season's over, yeah, you can go in and make them run and do all that stuff. But anyway, I think it's just wrong for the players and the fans because the fans supported you all year, and then you go and stink it up against Texas A&M at home. You know, that was at Notre Dame, folks. The Miami loss is slightly different, but A&M at home, come on.
I hear you. Well, it makes it fun. I mean, think of all the different television outlets that are out there on the sports side, whether it's Fox or ESPN or CBS or whoever, and they're kicking this thing around because, hey, they can, and it's worthy of being kicked around all day, all the way up until we start getting into the playoffs. So they're not so stupid. They know exactly what people want to hear, and they want to hear about all the good and the bad about this whole thing with this college playoff. And by the way, if they think it's going to make it any easier and they add even more teams to this playoff, which I think is stupid if they do, but if they did, John, it's going to be a nightmare of that because they probably shouldn't have gone to the number that they did, but you know what? They want money. So they did. All right. NFL, John. I thought I saw one of the best games that I've had an opportunity to watch this year so far. And I was on an airplane flying back from a funeral in California of a football player that I used to play with, great guy and all the rest of it. But Bears-Packers. And I'm sitting there watching this thing. And let me tell you something. Your Bears played extremely well. They really did. And it's a tough environment there. And, it's cold and all that kind of stuff. But Caleb Williams sure did impress me. Now, they didn't win. But I'll tell you what, the Packers and Jordan Love really do look good. I mean, I have to swallow anything I ever said negative about Jordan Love because he looks fantastic. He's throwing the ball, in an amazing way to his receivers. The team itself is playing really well. So I think that was one of the better games all year. But that being said, who is the MVP this year? I'm going to throw it out there again, John. It's either one of the oldest quarterbacks in football right now or one of the younger guys, one of the young guns. So start with the young gun, Drake May. All he's done is go out there, get his opportunity to play, and looking like a veteran, looking almost Tom Brady-ish, really. I mean, the way he's throwing the football around, John, slinging it around, playing in New England, which is a little bit more difficult than a lot of places for sure. But you look at his numbers, he's got 23 touchdowns with 6 interceptions. I mean, Jared Goff is having another really good year as well, 26 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So, but it's interesting to watch this whole thing. And then all of a sudden you've got a 37-year-old Matthew Stafford. And you and I have talked about him before, but 32 touchdowns, he's got the most. 4 interceptions, one of the least. 67% completion, one of the best. Over 3,000 yards. And his QBR, number 2 QBR to only Drake May. So if these two guys, they are up there for this thing. And the one thing that I would say about the Rams is their offensive line is keeping him upright. Everybody was so mad at JJ for the Minnesota Vikings, and they all wanted to hang him from the highest tree, right, John? Last week, they were like, this guy's terrible. He's a first-round pick. We traded up for him. He got hurt, and then this year he's been hurt a lot. And meanwhile, he gets out there and he stinks the place up. Well, when they kept him upright yesterday, now all of a sudden he's a world beater. Now he's the best quarterback in football, according to these Minnesota Viking fans. It's the dumbest thing in the world to listen to these guys, and most of them are actually the professionals out there, the sports guys on sports radio and former players who – they wibble and wobble all over this thing. JJ's a great quarterback. The problem is nobody blocks for him. Well, they got it done yesterday. They ran the ball better, which means he can throw the ball better. And suddenly now he's the best thing they've ever seen in their lives or whatever. He's the same guy as he was last week. He's just not getting hit. So interesting to watch that whole thing. But what do you think about Stafford and Drake May? And are they the right guys, do you think, right now, John?
Yeah, those are the two.
Yeah.
That's it. Full stop. End of story. We both know it's going to be a quarterback 99 times out of 100 anyway.
Yeah.
And those guys are both having, dare I say it, career years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, certainly Drake May, and he's got a very young career, but Stafford's got a great history of work, and he still looks this good.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure Stafford, if it ended today, Pete, Stafford would win it. But depending how we go into these playoffs, I think Drake May could be right there, and everybody, again, going back to the second coming of Tom Brady. Let me throw out something about the Bears and Packers, just real quick.
Yeah.
So time of possession, it was dead even, Pete. Mm-hmm. It's 30 minutes on either side, give or take 10 seconds, which is pretty amazing. Usually you see one team beat the other team, and they beat them up on time of possession too. Well, when you look at the stats, both quarterbacks had an interception, but Jordan Love, like you said, did have a much better game than Caleb in terms of QBR, because his QBR was 120 and Caleb's was 76.
Yeah. So
even though he threw for 186 yards and 2 TDs, the difference here is really that the Bears couldn't convert the 1 4th down they went for. They couldn't convert it. Mm-hmm. And third down conversions, they were only 36% to 58% for the Packers. So I lost some money to some Packers fans, and it's always painful to pay Packers fans because I was just lighting them up all week how we were going to beat them, and we did not. And I'm not saying it was referees or anything else. The Packers deserved it. Mm-hmm. But the difference really was their line, the blocking for Jordan Love, which the Bears had been good at until now, and the fact that they could go for it on 3rd down and even 4th down and make it, and the Bears couldn't.
What impresses me about Caleb, John, because last year I didn't like him at all. I didn't like anything about his game. I thought he was terrible, but maybe it was some of the coaching, quite frankly. And now you've got this great coach, comes down from Detroit, and he looks fantastic. What I like about Caleb is his escapability. He doesn't do it to run, though. He escapes to still look downfield, and I'll test anybody out there. I'd say, look, when you watch him, he isn't running to run the football. He's running to either maybe get a 3-yard gain and step out and get a 1st down or something like that. But most of the time, he's running, looking downfield and looking for the next pass to make. And his ability to have that sort of strength behind him makes him a really dangerous quarterback. We talk about different quarterbacks. We talk about Jaden Daniels out there at Washington and how he runs around, although he's getting hurt a lot this year, unfortunately, which probably because he runs around as much as he does. But quite frankly, Caleb does not run the same way. He's running to throw the football. And I think it's really been beneficial to that offense. And I'll tell you what, you've got some running backs in Chicago, John, that are as good as anybody out there right now. I mean, those guys are awesome to watch. The offensive line does a great job. And I'm so impressed with the Bears' turnaround from last year to this year. It's absolutely incredible. And a lot of that is Caleb. And a lot of it is the fact that they've got some damn good running backs and a better offensive line and good tight ends and all the things that they did in the offseason. I think they did everything the right way to put them where they are right now. So pretty impressed by the Bears.
I'll throw one good thing out to you about your Vikings, Pete. You know where J.J. McCarthy's 3 touchdowns, do you know what position he threw to? Tight end.
Tight end.
All 3 touchdowns were thrown to tight ends.
You know what? It's the Michigan way, John. I mean, when we talk about Harbaugh, what do we talk about? We talk about a guy who puts 3 tight ends on the field, whether he's at Michigan or anywhere else, but now what he's doing with the Chargers and all the rest of it. But he throws to the tight end. You know why? Because the tight end's open. these quarterbacks are all so egotistical and oftentimes dumb because all they want to do is they want to launch it downfield to a receiver who can run a 4.2 40. Well, that's great. And I'm okay with that, of course. I mean, our JJ is phenomenal, right? Justin Jefferson. But our JJ, the quarterback, finally realized, hey, look, this is just like Michigan. I got to get the ball to the tight ends because they're probably not being covered. And because of that, and their athleticism and their size and everything that goes along with these tight ends, you're 100% right, John. It's the fact that you can throw to the tight ends makes you a better quarterback.
Yep. The fact that he finally did it too is why that QBR went like this.
Yeah.
All right, folks. We will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So please tune in and join us. Tell a friend, share a little bit of the clips when we put them out there, and we will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time.